Good evening and welcome to my Tuesday night Principles of Good Health Live on my Facebook group, or you might be watching this later on my YouTube channel, Peyton Principles Natural Health, or perhaps you've even found this as my podcast, which are available on my website. So whichever way you are watching this, thank you for watching. If you're watching this live, that's great. For those of you that don't know, I deliver these talks live into my Facebook group called Inspired Lifestyle Choices for Women Over 35. I do these every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. So do come across and join my group so you don't miss them. Now, September is known as Organic Awareness Month. There's a big push in the UK with the organic movement through September to raise the awareness of the benefits of organic. So I thought, as I'm a nutritionist, I would have a look and review some of the data and information out there to see, is it worth it? I'll talk a little bit later on about the costs involved about organic, but just how much should we be spending on our organic food? Is it worth the additional cost to do that? What benefits are we going to get out of eating more organic food in our diets? But I first of all thought I'd talk about what do we mean by organic. So this is the avoidance of man-made chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides. For livestock, it means the avoidance of chemicals and things and genetically modified ingredients in the food fed to livestock. There would be no growth promoters used in animals. And whilst this isn't typical practice in the UK, there'd be no antibiotics given to the animals either we are consuming, or for example, if you're using the milk, there'd be no antibiotics involved either, although that's more restrictive in the UK with regards to antibiotic use anyway. So it's very closely monitored. The main certifier of organic food in the UK is the Soil Association. So most companies go to that. And for those that don't know, I also am a Neal's Yard Remedies consultant. So I use Neal's Yard Remedies organic skincare and have done for over 10 years now. No comments about my youthful or otherwise appearance of my face. But it's another way for me to reduce that sort of toxic burden that I'll mention a bit about as well. And I looked at the description for organic, that's by DEFRA, that's the Department for Agricultural and Rural Affairs. How do they define organic? And they talk about a whole system approach, and it goes beyond just the chemicals that I just mentioned, and talks about working towards environmentally, socially and economically sustainable production. So we now know we're looking way beyond just the chemicals used, but of course we're now very much focused more, aren't we, on the environmental aspects. We're very interested in climate change, and of course we also are concerned about animal welfare issues too, hence the big push for more people going vegan. So there are also benefits from organic by choosing to eat organic meat or the organic produce like eggs and dairy from organically reared animals, which can reduce some of the welfare issues that we can be concerned about and the environmental climate change issues as well. But looking mostly at the health benefits, I thought I'd talk about today. Now, one thing that I learnt during my studies 15 years ago was the massive increase in this sort of chemical burden on our bodies. And from a naturopathic perspective, this is having an impact. How can it not have an impact on our health overall? We are surrounded by these man-made chemicals, whether that's in food or, for example, the man-made chemicals that we know that goes into fire retardants on our furniture, for example. We've got so many chemicals, man-made chemicals that we're breathing in. So anything that we can do to reduce that toxic burden, I think is very, very important. Hence why I choose to use organic skincare on my face, because those chemicals are going to get absorbed through the skin. But going back to what we're talking about here with regards to food, when we consume foods that are sprayed with chemicals, whether it's to do with their growth or whether it's to do with their look and appearance, or to keep them fresh with regards to storage and transport to supermarkets. I believe those chemicals are definitely having a burden on our body. And I only have to think about the liver. The liver has many, many roles in the body, but one of its key roles is with regards to detoxification. Now, it's a very complex process, two-phase process, lots of chemical pathways, but everything that we consume will eventually end up going via the liver for detoxification purposes. And we need to reduce the burden on the liver. Yes, the liver is an amazing organ at detoxifying. It does need its good nutritional status to perform those detoxifying functions. But if you imagine that all the time we're putting an additional burden on the liver to get rid of these chemicals that we're consuming in greater and greater amounts year on year, then it's going to have a detrimental effect on its ability to perform all its other roles. And I particularly liken this and think about the liver's role with regards to hormone metabolism. And when I relate this back to female hormones and male hormones as well, but with females, its role in female hormone metabolism, if it's so busy trying to detoxify all these chemicals out of the body, then it's going to be putting an additional burden on its ability to perform these other roles, like metabolizing our hormones and keeping our hormones all nicely in balance. Then, of course, we've got our detoxification pathways and elimination, whether it's via the bowels or the kidney or the lungs, or indeed the skin. So maybe an additional toxic load on the body could end up resulting in toxicity being thrown off through the skin, because it is a major organ of elimination that we don't think about. So it's just worth bearing that in mind. Now, what about nutritional status? It took a long time for the science to catch up with what many of us thought, or those in the organic farming business believed all along. But there's been more and more science and studies to demonstrate the increased nutritional benefits of consuming organic. And I've just picked out a few things from some of the papers that I found. So, for example, antioxidants. Now, what are antioxidants? Through the processes in the body, it's constantly producing free radicals. That's a natural part and parcel of energy production in the body, to be producing free radicals in order to produce energy. But these free radicals need to be made safe in the body. And that's where antioxidants come in. They quell the oxidants, they quell the free radicals, so they protect our cells from free radical damage. That's all well and good. But what if our antioxidant status isn't as good as it should be? So you may be consuming loads of fruit and vegetables, but is the antioxidant status as good and as great in the non-organic compared to the organic? And there is research to show that actually there is a much greater antioxidant level in organic fruit and vegetables by as much as 60%. That's not going to be 60% across the board, but there has been shown to be 60% greater antioxidant capability to protect our cells from free radical damage, which is equivalent to 2 pieces of extra fruit and veg a day. Now, bearing in mind, it's very difficult for people to be consuming sufficient fruit and vegetables, and I go on a lot about the need to be eating 10 portions of vegetables with a little bit of fruit alongside that. Very, very difficult. But if you imagine, if you're eating more organic, you're going to get a greater level of antioxidants equivalent to 1 to 2 portions a day, which is quite considerable. Soils are depleted in many minerals like selenium and like zinc. So we know that's the case. We know we can't really get much selenium from our soils. Brazil nuts are a great source of selenium. So the comparison, looking back from the 1930s to the 1980s, when of course man-made chemicals and the use of fertilizers and pesticides have become in much greater abundance, it's been found that our vegetables are depleted massively in mineral concentrations, and they're going to be higher, and they are higher in organic. So, for example, in non-organic vegetables, calcium levels have declined by 46% copper 76%, sodium by 49%, iron by 27%, and magnesium by 24%. They're significant percentages. Massive reduction in our mineral levels in our soil, and we know our plants are taking up those minerals from the soils through its root network and then conveying their benefits onto us when they eat them. And it's no wonder that that I'm commonly recommending multi-nutrients to my clients, because not only is it difficult to be consuming those 10 portions of fruit and veg a day, but of course if they're not organic, then the soils are so depleted, we're not going to be getting as great a level of these important minerals. Some of these are trace minerals, some of them are our key main minerals, and whether they're trace minerals or not, they're just as important, have important roles in our body. Now, just moving beyond the vegetables and looking at from an animal point of view, so milk and dairy. So omega-3 and essential fats like EPA, DHA, it's been shown that the organic dairy and milk has much higher levels of these these omega essential fats. Now, omega-3 fats, but particularly the essential fats EPA, DHA, are absolutely critical to our health and well-being. We cannot make them ourselves, and we need to get them from our diets. And our main source is oily fish, so we can get some omega-3 from our diet and greater amounts in organic dairy and also in organic meat. The reason being, it's considered to be because organic cows are more likely to be grass-fed. A lot of our cows now are kept in barns. They don't get a huge amount of grass through, not at all through the winter months, and eat more crop-based, grain-based foods. So, and our grasses and like clover are going to be much richer in omega-3 fats. So whilst fish is our main source of these EPA, DHA type fats, we do get high amounts from organic dairy and our organic meats as well. So very important. They're anti-inflammatory, these fats. Every cell membrane surrounded by this essential fats, this fatty layer, our nerve membranes, cardioprotective, and for our brain health, and for many more reasons as well. Cholesterol, helping to keep the balance between HDL and LDL cholesterol, and much more besides that as well. So those essential fats. And finally, just a brief mention about heavy metal toxicity. The one heavy metal that has can be really detrimental to human health is cadmium. And it's been found that there's 50% less cadmium in organic crops. So that's more like to be in wheat-based barley, crops like that, rather than vegetables, and some vegetables as well. One thing we do know about cadmium, other than its toxicity to humans, is going back to talking about minerals, is that cadmium displaces zinc. So we're going to end up with a deficiency in zinc over and above what we may already have with zinc. We know that zinc deficiency and intake of zinc through our diets is declining all the time. We don't get much zinc naturally through our diets, and our zinc levels are probably lower than is ideal. So if you could potentially have cadmium toxicity, then it could be displacing the zinc that you are actually getting from your diet. Zinc is really important from an immune point of view, from our ability to be able to smell, for skin health, epithelial lining, the gut barrier lining, really important to have zinc, really important for male health, for the prostate, for sperm production. Zinc levels are declining all the time. So anything we can do to hold on and protect our zinc levels is really important. So there are all the benefits, but I started off by saying, well, what about the cost point of view? And yes, there is a cost differential, up to 10 to 20% more to buy organic. So if you're on a lower income, if you're trying to feed a family, this is really quite prohibitive for people. If it's just yourself, for you and your partner, your professionals, you've got a good income, you know, perhaps it's a no-brainer to go and spend a lot of money and really focus in on the organic, and great if you can do that. But for many people, it's not realistic to go out and buy a significant proportion of your food as organic. I do understand that. So the first thing I'd say is to make sure you really are washing your fruit and vegetables. You can soak your fruit and vegetables in a bowl when you first buy it, and really try and wash your vegetables. Obviously, if it's a skinned product like an avocado, then you don't need to do that. But if it's apples and strawberries and grapes, carrots, then you know you really need to think about soaking them and washing them thoroughly, because you will get some of that pesticide and other chemical residue off your fruit and vegetables in that way. The second thing, and I've talked about this a lot before, and I'll put an update in my group. So if you're in my group and this is how you're watching this, then I'll pin the latest PDF about this into the group. I did it last year, but it's to do with the Environmental Working Group. It's a really good site, and in my blog post that I will be putting on my website linked to this talk today, I will put a link into the article which will be on my website on the blog, and it's to do with the Environmental Working Group and the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. I love to talk about this. I think it's a great name, but each year they look at the cleanest fruit and vegetables. So why spend your money on the cleanest ones when they don't have significant pesticide, herbicide, fertilizer residue? But they also list this dirty dozen, and therefore they have so many chemicals. This is really where you should think about investing your money. So for this year in 2021, the dirtiest are strawberries, spinach, kale, nectarines, grapes, apples, cherries, peaches, pears, peppers, celery, and tomatoes. They are the dirtiest. And actually, one of the statements in the EWG's report was that they found in a single sample of kale that it had residues of 20 different pesticides. 20 pesticides on one crop alone. Huge number. But interestingly, on the Clean 15, I'm not going to read all of these out. And obviously, if they're skinned products, because it does list avocados, I could be so concerned about it. But broccoli and cabbage are actually much cleaner. They're in the top, you know, they're in the Clean 15. So kale, go organic. Broccoli and cabbage, you don't need to. You don't need to worry so much about it. So you can really think carefully about how you spend your money. And rather than buying organic in some of these Clean 15, focus on those dirty dozen. And just finally, you know, I've been doing it this year to a greater or lesser success, and that's starting to grow my own in a little way. And next year I hope to do much more. So we've had great success this year growing green beans and courgettes, and I've got an amazing crop of butternut squash coming along, and lettuce that I can just keep picking and it keeps growing. Which is fantastic. Tomatoes, something went really wrong with my lovely tomatoes. I need to think about that. And they were doing so well, it's really quite sad. But I've made an effort. I have a lovely herb garden outside my kitchen window door. So I've got lots of herbs growing there, which I can just go and pick. So it's all organic. And isn't that lovely, especially when you can just pick it fresh, because you're going to retain more nutritional status that way. You may not have much space to grow organic. You may just use grow bags to grow some. You may just have a few pots to grow some potatoes in or some tomatoes. You may only have a windowsill, so you might be quite limited. But every little bit helps. So do whatever you can. It's not too late to think about that, say from a herb point of view, maybe getting towards the end of the season this year, but really think in the spring about, you know, can you start to grow some of your own? And it can be highly rewarding, can be disappointing, but, you know, give it a go. It's going to be much cheaper as well if you can grow your own. And you may get the benefit of a huge crop of organic. If you have like-minded neighbours, then you could start to share, because if you have bumper crops, it all comes along at the same time. So you could all grow different things and share in that way. So thank you for your time today. Hope you found this interesting. I'll be back next Tuesday with another topic on my Tuesday night live, all part of my Principles of Good Health series, helping to keep you healthy, active, and as well as you possibly can be. So take care and have a great week. Bye.